What are the houses at the most basic fundamental level? Today, I want to get into that. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Eden, and today I want to talk about what a house is in astrology. Today, I want to get into what a house is in astrology. Not really so much about the house systems that different astrologers use, or even about what individual houses mean in terms of topics or experiences that we have. I want to get into just the idea of what is this thing that we're calling a house? What is a house about at its most root or core idea? Now, the concept of a house basically starts in ancient Egypt by the Egyptians. They had a system that they were using known as the 36 decans or the 36 deacons. Essentially, what happened is that Alexander the Great conquers Egypt and forms his empire around 334 BC. And this brings in a new cultural diffusion when it comes to the practice of astrology, because there were the Greek astrologers that had essentially taken the Mesopotamian zodiac, and this zodiac was concerned with the movements of the seasons throughout the year and the movements of the planets in their orbits. Well, that's the astrology that was around at in those days. But when the Greeks learn of the Egyptians using this astrology that was based on the movement of the diurnal period, or the 24-hour rotation of the Earth that gives us one day and one night in one rotational period. That time scale was the astrology that the 36 decans were being employed at with the Egyptian practice. Now, essentially, the Greek Hellenistic astrologers over the next few centuries, they incorporate this decan practice, and that was the pre-concept for the houses. By the time the Roman Empire comes along, they've sort of simplified the 36 down to 12, but the concept is the main important point that I want to talk about today, because it's really the concept itself that is quite interesting in a very abstract form when you stop and sit and think about what is a house at its root level, beyond what it means in terms of the first house means this or the second house means money. What is it really? And I actually, to be honest, struggled with coming up with a very concise definition for what this concept was. So before I give you my conclusions on what I think the houses are, I wanted to go ahead and read a couple of excerpts out of a couple of books here that are really, really good. The first one here, let me see if I can hold it up, is Demetra George's excellent Ancient Astrology. And this excerpt is coming out of chapter 17 here, and the chapter is called Deacons. And she says, she's talking about Firmicus Maternus here, and she says, Firmicus Maternus wrote that the decans are of, quote, unlimited power and license, in that they denote the fates of men through the authority of their own power. I really like that. They denote the fates of men through the authority of their own power. Okay, we're going to move on to excerpt 2, which is coming from this book here, Mathesis here. And this is a book that Mathesis wrote about Firmicus Maternus. Now, let us turn our attention to the exposition of the angles and of all of the houses. For when all of these things have been diligently discovered by us, we ought to explain the several houses of the nativity, through which the entire substance of the life of men is divided, but for the moment only generally. And then he goes on, but I think that this is getting exactly at the heart of what the houses represent, but it's just taking you right to the edge of the deeper understanding. And then we sort of have to contemplate it a bit more here. But now let me get into what my general conclusion about this is that The houses, at the most basic level, they are an invitation for the gods above to send messages to us. But here is the caveat. These messages have to come through a preset decoding system or a preset translator, a preset communicative system that allows us to understand what the messages are speaking to. And here's why. I'm going to give an analogy to this to just sort of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. The first one is, a while back, my partner, Kate, she told me about this really cool thing where you can buy this thing for your cats and you can program these different buttons and then reinforce, rewards so that if you can train your cat to press the button that you've pre-programmed for water or for food or for let me out of the house or for attention or play or something like this, you can get your cat to essentially provide a very definitive communication by pressing the button. The button says out the word water, something like this. And now, whereas before you might have kind of seen your cat maybe and you're like, okay, maybe he's maybe hungry or maybe the cat wants water. You kind of know a little bit about what your cat wants from time to time. And the cat probably knows a little bit about what you're speaking about from time to time. But because you don't speak cat and they don't speak human, there isn't like a precise, for sure way to know exactly what the communication is about. The second analogy is this game that they have at the carnival called the ring toss. And essentially you walk up to a platform that holds, it must be like 500 bottles or something. And the bottles are all standing upright. And then they give you a bucket that has like, I don't know if it's 50 rings or 25 rings or something, but they're these little red rings that are just barely big enough to fit over the bottleneck. And of course, the object is you're going to throw the rings at the bottles and hopefully one will land just right and it'll slip over the bottleneck and then you get a prize, right? So it's very hard to do. Most of the time they just bounce off and people usually just lose their $5. But here's the idea. This is a lot like the houses, and here's why. The houses would be the bottles in this analogy, and the ring toss would be like the divine realm or heavens above. But we have to do something to the bottles to really make them like the houses. First, we have to grab a roll of tape and a magic marker or a permanent marker, and we're going to tear off some tape and we're going to write a word on each strip. The word is going to be about an archetype that holds some kind of meaning for an experience that most of us will have in our lifetimes. So it has to be broad. It has to be an archetype. And what I mean by an archetype is just something that most of us universally will experience before we die. Actually, death is a really good one to articulate here because everybody will have to face death sooner or later. At some point, we will all have to face this fear and we will all have to go through this door and transition into whatever comes after death. So death is a human archetype. And this could be one of the words that you put on the tape. You could write death. And then you could put that tape on the bottle, and that bottle would represent this whole topic of death, the fear of death, illness, perhaps getting old, facing death, maybe watching other loved ones pass through the doorway of death. This could be about the entire universal concept of death as an archetype. Now you're going to come up with, let's say, 11 more, right? Because there's 12 houses. So one is going to be partnerships or relationships, maybe love. One could be children. One could be home and family. One could be money. One could be work or career. One could be health or body. And you're going to label each bottle and you're going to slide them all together. And then you're going to take your rings and you're going to try to make a ring toss that lands on one of those bottles. It's going to be random for the most part, and that is the key of divination here. Now, this is a lot like a weird, odd version of just doing a tarot card pull, where you're going to take your hand and you're going to just pull one card from the deck at random, and then you're going to see what archetype you've pulled. Now, as a divinatory system, what is happening here at the basic level is that we understand that the cosmic connection of the higher divine realm is going to be flowing through us, and it's going to connect with the card that we're meant to hone in on, the card that we're meant to recognize as we pull it. And you can't pull a wrong card in the divination idea, right? You're going to pull the whatever card you're meant to get. But in this system, we recognize that the higher divine realm is coming down through us, channeling through us somehow, and we're going to pick that right card. In this situation, for the bottles, it would be like you throwing that ring, and the same thing. The higher divine realm is going to come down. You're going to throw it. That ring is going to land on the right bottle. There's no wrong bottle that it could land on. And whatever bottle it lands on, let's say it lands on relationships, that means that the message is coming down from the higher divine realm, but it's able to be translated very specifically, just like a cat pressing a button that says water. Because if we didn't have the bottles labeled, it wouldn't mean anything to us. The event would still happen. We might still land a ring on the bottle, and we might still get a prize or whatever, but it isn't going to mean anything to us. There isn't going to be any focus in on what the message is about. The message might be even about something, but just in the same way that you can't exactly know what your cat is saying to you when he meows, and the cat can't exactly know what we're saying to what we can't, the cat can't exactly know what we're saying to him or her. This is the same situation where it takes away the ambiguity because we've preset the decoding machine. We've invited the message to come down, but we've preset the communication so that once the movement happens, we can have a preset selection that tells us exactly what the message was meant to be speaking to or recognizing that has a meaning for us in our lives. That is what the houses really are. It's just that in this system, what they're doing is they have these divisions of the sky, or the divisions of the earth below. They have these 12 divisions that are around us. And as the gods move, as the planets move through a house, or as the zodiac travels through the houses, as we examine a natal chart and see that frozen moment in time where we see, oh, this house was occupying this sign, or this sign was occupying this house, and this planet was in this position, and this house and this sign. That is where the rubber meets the road for communication. So imagine if you didn't have the houses, essentially you would still have a divination tool. You would still have the zodiac. You would still have the planets moving through the signs, and you would still come up with some kind of interpretive meaning for that. But the houses give us a way where we can say, okay, the message is meant to come down and be about topic X or topic Y. It's meant to be about my love life or my kids or my health. So this invites the decoding machine that we have pre-programmed, and we've said, hey, we're inviting you now. We've set the communication up. We've written the labels on the bottles. We've set up the tarot card deck, and we're now ready to pull a card. It's the same thing, but it's just a different mode of divination here. So this is how I see the houses at the most fundamental level. They are essentially a decoding interface of communication that is between us and the gods above, where we might not understand exactly what the gods are saying, but now that we have a system that is set up with predetermined topics or experiences or archetypes, now as the heavens move above our head or below our planets, we can say, oh, this message is the right message for this exact topic in our lives. So that's what I'm seeing for the houses. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about that. If you have your own ideas about the houses, I'd love to hear them. I'm going to go ahead and begin making a playlist of the actual houses themselves, some of the metaphysical concept of the houses, how the houses came to be associated with the archetypes that they are in the future. And I'd love to know what the houses that you most want me to cover are. So go ahead and leave your comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.